approved unanimously. Thank you very much, committee. Okay, it's time to get an update from the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer or the associate. Chrissy?
Thank you, Chair Beckham. Well, I've been off for about 6 weeks, first week back, so forgive me if I missed some things. I'm gonna let Ian help me out here. But I will say that we just completed our first in-person Main Street conference in a long time in Klamath Falls. It was extremely successful. We had about 150 people, I think, yeah. Some really great keynote speakers. It was great to get everybody together in a downtown again. And that was a very important important thing for us to do. A big item that I want to point out, and you can find more information about this on our website, but in addition to the Main Street report that Sherry just shared with you, Oregon Heritage, sort of the other side of the Heritage Division office, sponsored with IPRE, the I always forget what IPRE stands for, University of Oregon's Institute for Policy, Research, and Engagement. We have partnered with them many times to produce various studies, and this particular study is called What's Up Downtown, a playbook for activating Oregon's upper stories. And we, just like we saw at the St. Francis today, there's upper floor housing opportunities all over the state. And that study was meant to identify where they are and what are the obstacles to turning them into housing during this housing crisis that everybody is experiencing. It really got picked up a lot by the press. It's a question that resonates with all aspects of community development and community building, and not just historic preservation. These places happen to be on the second floors of historic buildings in Oregon's Main Street downtowns. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. There's also an important piece, and this is something we always try to incorporate into our studies, a pilot sort of case study and then some pilot documents to make sure that this isn't just a one-off report, that these are that there are elements to this study that can just be sort of taken by any community and put into play at whatever level they are. And
Chrissy, can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
At our February meeting, we'll have a presentation that goes more in depth on that. One of our staff members is going to talk about that, but it is out now and you're welcome to look at it. But if you have questions and things, we'll have somebody available to answer that.
perfect, thank you, Robert. And let's see, I've mentioned before that I've been chairing up a committee with the National Conference of SHPOs to take a look at the National Register and other sort of designation programs around the country and around the world to see what we can do to make the National Register more inclusive, more accessible. Are there other ways to acknowledge, designate, identify, celebrate historic places for different reasons of significance that don't have anything to do with the National Register? It's called the National Historic Designation Advisory Committee. Our final report is this close to being completed, and I'll be participating in a panel at the National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference in early November with some other people who are kind of tired of talking about the National Register and any issues. We want a call to action, and how do we make this a better program? How do we make other programs work better as well? Because it is tethered to so many of our preservation policies and programs in this country. And what else am I missing here? Oh, I'm gonna let you do that. I'm gonna pass it over to Ian. He has some really interesting news to share with you.
All right. So we've got a few things going on with the office. Of course, we'll be talking a little bit later about the preservation plan, but I just want to give you a sense of kind of what the outreach has been to date, since I know that will be of interest to this group. So we got kicked off in June. We did a total of 11 public meetings, all by Zoom. I would get fairly good, I would say, aspirational attendance, but actual attendance was a little bit less. Usually getting about half as many people as we registered, but we did have some really good group sessions. The first 6 were run by region to try to get a sense of where we could focus on more local issues. The reason why I chose to do that is otherwise I get folks from the urban areas dominating the conversation. So, you know, kind of moving from area to area. I didn't exclude someone. I didn't make anyone hold their driver's license up in the camera, but generally that's helpful to go ahead and do that. And we had 2 just kind of general meetings for people who might have missed. And then we had 3 meetings focusing on specific topics. So we did one on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, which was led by our new agency diversity, inclusion, and access coordinator, who led that session for us. And then the I3 folks did sessions on disaster preparedness and preservation planning. And so since we were doing those specific topic-based presentations, I brought in experts to go ahead and do the facilitation for those specific sessions. We got a lot of good feedback generally, and you'll get a sense of what the presentation was like because you'll get a version of it as part of your workshop later today. We also launched a survey monkey. That's a little bit different information, more because of that format. It's not as give and take. But what types of properties were people interested in listing the National Register? Why? What kind of themes? What their affiliations were? Kind of where they wanted to see our emphasis on historic properties. That's still running through the end of the month. I've been doing a series of meetings also with different commissions and whatnot. You're one of them. So with the Heritage Commission, the Cemetery Commission, a few others. I will likely be meeting with the Architectural Heritage Center for one of their meetings. DLCD staff, Department of Land Conservation and Development staff, want to have a meeting that talk about specifically, perhaps ODOT. It's a busy time of year to try to catch any time of year. It's busy to catch state agencies. So I'm trying to pull them in as much as possible. And I'm also accepting written comments. And so our public comment period runs through the end of the year. Since I have a grand advertising budget of 0, when I give my presentation to you, I'll give some information, and if you could disseminate that through your networks, that'd be great. It's super helpful because I can send out emails all day, and I did spam people from our database, but most often people will do something because someone they know asks them to do it. Because how many spam emails do you get, right? You know, quite a few. So even if I get past the blocker, like I don't know this guy. So if folks are willing to help me out, that'd be great. If you didn't catch the press release, we resubmitted the Eastmoreland Historic District nomination on September 30th. That was provided to the Park Service. After some delay, they let us know that they would make a decision on or before November 17th. I'm trying to get a little more, hang a little more flesh on that. Last I spoke to them, and I'm looking at Robert to see if he's going to update me. I hadn't seen it post in the Federal Register yet, which would give a more concrete date. Some opponents has submitted a number of issues and questions that they perceive to be miscounts. Robert and I have looked at those questions. We think those could be easily answered. And so we'll be doing that and putting that information together, meeting with staff to do that. So we'll be putting together kind of a formal response to those things. I've drawn a blank on the numbers. Robert, do you remember what the numbers were as of September 30th?
No, it was ballpark, but I can't.
It was a solid, the opposition, the number of objections were far short. So, and that is the process of this is our 4th submission to the National Park Service under our new state rule, which gives us a lot more ability and authority to make decisions and more clear channels. There's still some of the moneyness that is baked into the National Park Service way of doing things, which one is you can be submitting objections and removing documents up to the very last minute. So the count is a constant moving target. And so that's part of the questions we've been asked to raise, because the opposition has raised those questions, and Park Service is well aware that's part of the process. So we'll be addressing that. So I do expect to have this hopefully cleaned up by November 17th. That's the hope. So I'll be contacting Park Service to get some more details. But as of this moment, that's what I know. Since this has been going on a while, is there any questions before I move on to the next topic? No, you're all just as glad as I am to head out the door. So, a couple other projects we're working on. You saw Joy Sears today. So she's, our state federal tax person. You may have noticed since she came back, we've kind of narrowed her focus in that we used to provide a lot of general advice to the public. And that, I've just got one person in that position with the number of grants loading through. We really narrowed it into, if someone's calling in for general information, we're going to give them some pointers. We'll give them our sales pitch for our programs, but our efforts are really concentrated on those who are participating in our grant programs, the state and federal tax programs, because that's the capacity we have right now. It's worked really well in that it's providing a lot more necessary assistance to those people who are taking those public dollars to spend and making sure that they're working well and efficiently through those. We've also had Joyce start to concentrate a lot more on providing training as attached to our already existing program. So like the Oregon, she did something at the Oregon Main Street program and other kinds of things. And so pulling that together so that her time is concentrated. She used to do a lot of workshops, kind of, driving around the state. The problem is you get 5-10 people. And so for the effort and planning, and most often it's the staff time, really saying, that we're going to go ahead and really concentrate these and move along with our other things. So for survey and inventory, I think an exciting initiative, Jason and Corin Tippett, who was our new hire as of January 1 for the survey and archaeology program. We've pulled the archaeology survey over to our preservation group with Jason sits. And so we're creating a more integrated program that requires a lot of IT programming. It's probably going to be a year or so before we really get on that, but we are excited to have like a real survey program in that that has often been an afterthought. So pulling together the information technology and the records into something that really is going to make sense and be a lot more accessible. That is it for me. We of course have lots of things going on. We'll invite any questions if you have any.
I actually have a couple more things to add. I'm participating in a historic property work group. This started last year. It's a subcommittee of the House Revenue Committee, and it is staffed by 2 representatives, Bobby Levy from ECHO and Andrea Valderrama from the East Portland. And this is a group that is trying to produce a bill for this coming legislative session around our special assessment program. So there, we can either not renew it, we can renew it with changes. And I think the goal is to renew it with changes in as a part of a suite of other more accessible and easier to use historic preservation incentives. So that work is continuing. I just wanted to update you on that. And Ian and I are both participating in a recruitment for a preservation assistant. You'll remember Tracy Collis, and we've always had an administrative person who kept our ship afloat in that regard. And that position got removed to be a part of an administrative pool at the headquarters building. It didn't work that well for any of the other divisions either. So we're getting her back, or he back, or whoever gets the position. We're getting that position back. So next time we meet, you will see a new face. So that's exciting. And I will say kudos to Robert and Jason, who have been keeping those administrative wheels on as well as their regular jobs while we've been just going through temps like crazy. So thank you guys. And I think that's it for us. You're good. All right. Any questions for us, Ms. Blair?
Thank you, staff. Well, I erred and did not look over my left shoulder when we were doing introductions, and I'll go turn to Chris Hobble, Associate Deputy of the State Parks Board.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't need an introduction. My note is we do have one item on the agenda that I want to just check off here. This is a time in the meeting when if there's public comment on things that are not on the agenda, you need to raise your hand and we can address it. If I'm looking at you folks online, you can't see me, but if you've got something you'd like to say here at the beginning of the meeting, raise your hand in Zoom. Otherwise, we'll move on. And just as a reminder, I will give people a chance to do that. This is being recorded and also being streamed live to YouTube. Our internet connection here is pretty dicey, and this room is really echoey. So any extraneous noise is getting right to the owl and confusing everybody online. So if we can keep any side conversations, if you'd like to have them, to step outside or into the creepy back room over that corner. And any other like rustling of papers or cracking of cellophane or anything like that, if we can keep that down, that would be awesome. Seeing no hands, nobody in the room. All right, nice to see you again. I'm done.
Thank you, Chris. Well, you're next on the agenda.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
This is a continuation from June. It's a rule discussion from presented by Chris Hall.
Good, so tricky. So hi, for the record, Chris Howell, Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. As you know, it's been a struggle since the attack that this committee suffered in October 2021 to try and find a balance between what people expect from open government and what we need to do to protect the health and safety of public servants. We did try to amend the administrative rule that governs the procedures for this committee to move more towards a position of health and safety for committee members. As you know, this is one of the few committees where public participation is mandatory by law. The change to the administrative rules that we attempted would have continued with public access to this committee, but public comment, especially on nominations, even in a live meeting, would flow to staff who would, at the discretion of the chair, flow to staff who would check to make sure that the commenters are on topic and that they're not engaging in any kind of attack on committee members. Staff would take those public comments, feed them to the committee members during the meeting without edits, and open you up for the deliberations that lead to your decision. So there was nuance in the language here, mainly giving the chair the discretion to direct comments to go through staff during a live meeting. I won't go into the exact detail. This attempt to amend the rules only resulted in a minor change to the rules. It did not set this structure into place. The Oregon State Parks and Recreation Commission took the staff recommendation and the public comment, the staff recommendation to amend the rule as it was proposed to set the structure into place. And our commissioners expressed concerns related to equity, setting up a feeling of
being judged or putting barriers in place that would prevent people from expressing themselves to the government. That's supposed to be serving them. The concerns about either implicit or explicit bias in the way staff handled comments, creating a fear of government watchdogging or tracking or punishing people for crimes that they haven't committed, and depriving this committee of receiving completely authentic, genuine comments from people who have issues related to nominations. It was a long conversation with the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Commission. It wasn't easily decided, but in the end, what